Uh, all right, thank you. We're going to go back into session now. I believe everyone is back on. I don't, there, okay. I don't see Jennifer. That I think we have a quorum. And we're going to jump ahead to agenda item 18, petition for reinstatement. And I believe it's Judge Aspinwall. I will turn it over to Your Honor to proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We are on the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement filed by Rebecca Lynn Diaz. This is Veterinary Medical Board a case number, it's actually Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 2021-030-105. And we are in a proceeding before the Veterinary Medical Board on the petition. Can we confirm that we have a quorum of board members present?
Certainly. Jessica wants to do a roll call.
Of course. Ms. Bowler.
Here.
Dr. Bradbury.
Here.
Ms. Laredo.
Here.
Ms. Prado.
Here.
Ms. Yanis. Here. Dr. Nolan.
Here.
Dr. Nunez.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Is it correct that Ms. Solicito is not present?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay, so is the petitioner present?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, and let me just tell you a few words about this hearing process. First of all, this is your opportunity to present to the board members your evidence of rehabilitation in support of your petition. I want to focus your attention on the fact that the hearing today is regarding your rehabilitation and whether you have achieved sufficient rehabilitation to warrant reinstatement of your license consistent with the protection of the public. This is not an opportunity to engage in a relitigation of the case at all, so you should not stray in that direction, but focus on rehabilitation. Do you have any witnesses other than yourself today?
No, I did not. They all submitted written testimony, so I did not have them come live.
Okay, you need to speak up just a little bit. I can't quite hear you.
Okay. The people that would have been witnesses have submitted letters for me, and so I did not have anybody to be here live.
Okay. And do you have any other documents that you're going to want to introduce into evidence other than those that are included in the packet, which has exhibits 1 through 6?
The only additional thing that I would like to submit is I have the March report from Hazelton Betty Ford as I'm attending their connections program.
Okay. And is there a way for her to submit that via email to the board members?
Yeah, if she would like, she can send it to her probation monitor, Virginia Gerard, and she can forward it to me and I'll send it to all board members.
Okay.
Thank you.
So are you able to send that by email at this point?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can go grab another device and send it. Do you want me to send it right now?
That would be helpful.
Okay, I will do that. I'll be right back. Thanks.
And to make sure that Your Honor and Ms. Mantle get it as well, I'll include them on the email.
I didn't quite hear you, Ms. Huberman.
I'm sorry, I will also include yourself and Ms. Mantle on the email, so you guys have all the same documentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm forwarding it now. Trying to open it.
Have you sent it?
I'm just getting it right now, and it is now being sent right now. It's sent.
Okay, so Ms. Diaz, let me explain to you the process a little bit that we're going to go through today. First of all, we have a Deputy Attorney General, Ms. Seamantle, who will have an opportunity to ask you questions. But before she does, you'll have the opportunity to give a presentation of your own under oath. So the board will be hearing from you. We will go forward in the following order. That is, Ms. Seamantle will introduce the case, introduce the documents, any comments she might have. The documents will be marked as evidence. Then you will be sworn in and given an opportunity to testify. After you testify, the Deputy Attorney General may ask you some questions, and the board members will in all likelihood ask you some questions. After the board members have asked questions, the Deputy Attorney General may ask follow-up questions, and then you'll be given an opportunity to give a final statement. After that, the record will be closed and the board will go in executive session and make a determination regarding your petition. You will not be notified today of the outcome. I will prepare a written decision for the board's review following the deliberations. And so you'll be notified sometime after 30 days in all likelihood. Okay, do you have any questions about procedure?
No.
Okay. And bear in mind that we are using a court reporter, and the microphones and so forth are of varying quality. So the reporter has to take everything down on the record, and the board members have to be able to hear what you have to say. So you need to focus on making sure you're close to the microphone, that you don't speak quickly, because when you speak quickly, the words tend to get a little bit obscured, and that only one person speaks at a time. So, so it is important that you do try and speak as clearly as possible, speak a little bit louder than normal and a little bit slower than normal. If the court reporter can't hear what you're saying, she can't take it down and may well need to interrupt to make sure that what you're saying is on the record. Any questions so far?
No.
Great. Okay then. With that bit of orientation, is the Deputy Attorney General present? Would you like to introduce yourself and introduce the case?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Melissa C. Mantle, Deputy Attorney General. I am appearing on behalf of the Acting Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I am here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I am here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. The exhibits that have been previously provided to petitioner are Exhibit 1, which includes the petition for reinstatement. Exhibit 2 has the notice of hearing. Exhibit 3 is the license history certification for petitioner. Exhibit 4 is petitioner's documents in support of the petition for reinstatement, which include a letter from petitioner, live scan form, 4 letters of support, petitioner's resume, continuing education documents, Hazelden Betty Ford monthly summaries, and 8 additional letters of support. Exhibit 5 is the decision and order in case number BV201538, which is also OAH case number 2015110585. That exhibit also includes the decision and order, the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, and accusation. Exhibit 6 contains the decision and order in case number 4602017000634, which is also OH number 2017040301, which also includes the stipulated surrender of license and order and petition to revoke probation. I would ask that those documents be admitted for all purposes.
The documents are admitted, exhibits 1 through 6 for all purposes. And we expect another document to be forthcoming, and we'll deal with that when it arrives.
Thank you. As a brief background, the board issued petitioner veterinary license number VET 13706 on June 22nd, 1999. And on October 15th of 2011, the board issued veterinary premises permit number HSP 6946 to the Perfect Cat Clinic Incorporated, also known as the Cat Clinic. Effective May 1st, 2016, pursuant to the decision and order in case number BV201538, petitioner's license was placed on probation for 4 years with certain terms and conditions. The case was based upon petitioner's use or administration to herself of controlled substances, dangerous use of drugs and alcohol, and also disciplined by the U.S. Department of Justice Drug Enforcement Administration. The circumstances are that from February 2012 through June 2013, petitioner self-administered morphine, Dilaudid, and or hydromorphone while working at her veterinary clinic. Also, petitioner was disciplined by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration based upon her use of controlled substances from her veterinary clinic, and petitioner later surrendered her DEA permit. On March 20th, 2017, a petition to revoke probation was filed against petitioner in board case number 460201700000634. The petition to revoke probation alleged that petitioner continued to manage the Perfect Cat Clinic Incorporated despite a probation condition prohibiting petitioner from managing or being the administrator of any veterinary hospital. Also, petitioner failed to complete the Maximus diversion program because she was terminated from the program due to a positive test result for midazolam in July of 2016 and December 2016. Lastly, petitioner failed to abstain from the use of controlled substances. Effective November 20th of 2017, petitioner surrendered her license and agreed to pay the board the balance owed in regards to cost recovery in the amount of $9,385 for the cost of the investigation and the enforcement in case number AV 201538 prior to the reinstatement or issuance of petitioner's license. Petitioner is requesting that the board reinstate her license. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but would reserve the right to question the petitioner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Ms. Diaz, this is your time to testify. So if you will raise your right hand, I will swear you in. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Well, I think I will go ahead and start back a couple of years. And I have to say, to start with, that losing my license was probably the best thing that happened to me because I needed time. I needed time to work.
Ms. Diaz, I'm going to remind you, speak slowly. You're speeding up, and people tend to speed up when they're nervous, and no doubt you're nervous. So, slow down a bit. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, but I'm really bad. So I think people need to mute their microphones when they're not speaking.
Is this better?
Jeff, well, this is the moderator. We appear to be having some challenges with your audio at the moment.
Okay, so let me mute myself and unmute myself, and if necessary, I will log out and log back in. Sometimes that helps. Just a moment. Is my audio
Able to understand.
Is my audio any better? I'm hearing echoing. Okay. I will log out and log back in. Just a moment.
Members, while we wait, I do want to let you know that I forwarded the document that we received from Dr. Diaz.
Was I the only one that was really struggling to hear?
No, there's a lot of feedback and overlay on this. I don't know it may be
I
the
think so.
moderator's looking into it.
Well, the judge logged off and it's all gone. So hopefully when he logs back on, it's going to be back to normal.
Judge Aspinwall, this is the moderator. I have reconnected you from our attendee panel. Let's do another microphone check if we can.
Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Is that an improvement?
Much better.
Good, thank you. Okay, so,
Your Honor, my apologies. This is the moderator. We seem to have lost the petitioner. I am
Ms.
watching.
Ms. Diaz, are you?
No, she has dropped from the meeting. I'm watching for her to come back in.
Okay. We have received I received an email with the Hazelden report. I'm going to print it out. And Ms. Seamantle, if you can look at it, we can treat it as Exhibit 7.
That is agreeable, however you would like to include it in the packet.
That probably makes the most sense to insert it as Exhibit 7.
This is
All
the
right, thank
moderator.
you.
The petitioner is back with us.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to step to the printer just to grab the document. I will be right back. Just a second.
I thought I was hearing some feedback from the judge. When he comes back, maybe we can suggest he mutes when he's not talking.
So this is the moderator. We do seem to be having some feedback. So if I could please ask Your Honor, Judge Aspinwall, and our petitioner, if you could keep your microphones muted when you're not speaking, and that should probably help us along.
I can't hear anything.
Okay, Ms. Diaz, are you ready to go forward with your presentation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm going to mute myself at this point.
So I'd like to start and talk about what I did after my license was suspended or revoked. I spent a lot of time. I met Kim Hardy, who is my sponsor, and there is a letter from her, and started working with Kim. I also joined several women's groups that met. One met on Wednesday for an hour and one met on Saturday for an hour. And the discussions were for the women's groups, basically the different parts of the 12 steps and how to become a better person and how to be of service and to help people. That was very good. And I spent a year and a half going to the Buddhist Center 2 or 3 times at lunchtime for meditation and in the evenings to some of their classes. I worked through this for over 2 years, and I feel that I have determined the things, the missteps that I made, and have also overcome a severe depression that was evident. And I have been working on myself, and up until January of last year, I basically didn't spend any time at the clinic at all. And it was good to get a break. It helped me understand how much I really love veterinary medicine and how much I miss it. I wasn't sure in the beginning, but I'm quite sure now. And I have done continue to work with my sponsor. We talk almost on a daily basis. I am working with Betty Ford, and I'm in their connections program. We talk every 2 weeks, and they do drug testing, and I plan to stay in that for at least another 2 years. I have been helping at the office and mostly as an administrative manager, doing payroll and ordering for the doctor. But my recovery and staying sober has been really the focus, and I spend a lot of time exercising, meditating, working with Kim, and doing what I need to do to stay sober.
Is there more you would like to say, Ms. Diaz, before Ms. Seamantle asks you some questions?
I would like to say that I very much am hoping that I will be able to get my license back. I not only work here, but I've worked around the world helping people do spay and neuter clinics and helping with overpopulation problems from Lebanon to Majuro in the Pacific Ocean. And I would really like to be able to do that again and to be able to help the animals here. I feel kind of adrift, not being able to help them sometimes. But we move them on to emergency clinics or whoever needs to take care of them. But I would be so grateful if I could get my license. That's
Okay.
really,
So at this point, Ms. Seamantle is going to ask you some questions, and it's important that you wait until she is finished asking the question before you start to answer. That way we only have one person speaking at a time. So you give a little bit of a pause before you start with your answer, and listen carefully to the question. Answer the question if you know the answer, okay? Thank you. Ms. Seamantle, go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Ms. Diaz.
good afternoon.
Do you know what caused you to start using controlled substances?
Yes, I do know what caused me to start using them. I was experiencing a lot of trouble in my marriage, and honestly, I had lived in Guam up until 2007 and ran a veterinary practice there, and there was quite a bit of difference between clients here, and I was not prepared in some ways for the details that they expected. And I also had to work through the fact that I can't save every animal that comes to me. I can only do my best and, you know, work with people, get opinions when I need them from specialists, but that to do my best doesn't mean that every single animal is going to live. And the combination of those things affected me greatly. I have learned since then from what I've learned at Betty Ford and what I've learned working with the other groups and at the Buddhist Center. I think better how to deal with the fact that I am a doctor, I'm not a god, and that how to work with the people here and understand them better. And my marriage is no longer in trouble.
What do you have in place to ensure that the things that cause, potentially contributed to you using controlled substances will not cause you to use controlled substances again in the future?
I have a support system now. I have made a lot of friends in the last couple of years, and I'm in constant contact with them. I'm no longer isolated, and that affects people a great deal. So I have that in place. I have my sponsor and I have my friends at work. All of the people there are aware of what has happened, and I'm sure they would put up with no nonsense from me. But specifically, I've also looked at, I won't have a DEA license for a while. I don't know if I get one, so I might not be able to use controlled substances at all. They are currently under the other veterinarian's license, and I know I will have no access to those. If I do get a DEA license back, what I had planned to do is, actually I'm going to do it anyways, get a QBEX, so that anytime any drug is touched, you have a fingerprint on it, and you have to tell it how much you're taking out, and it keeps track of everything, as well as having a human being with a controlled substance license monitoring what is going on. And that's if I get my DEA license back. I don't know if I will.
When you were first placed on probation, you continued to operate your veterinary clinic despite the terms and conditions that you were not able to do so. Is that right?
My name was on the premises permit, the original premises permit, but it was under another person's name. And Dr. Kane was a person, Dr. Roberts and Dr. Kane were people who were actually in charge of it, not me. And I know there's some semantics with, if you get the original permit, then it's yours. But it was under other people's names and they were there.
You continue to work at the cat clinic, is that correct?
I took 2 years off from the end of May 2017 until, well, actually it's a little bit more, till towards the end of 2019. I was not there. I had an office manager and I was not there.
Are you currently working there?
I do work there now under Dr. Kane. She's the director. I do mostly administrative duties, help people hold cats when they need to get blood and things like that. I do some of the basic ordering for the clinic to keep it up and supervise. I try to hire, so they're few and far between, veterinary people, technicians to work there, and do payroll.
Who is Dr. Todd Taylor?
Dr. Taylor is a relief veterinarian. He works in this area. He did a lot of relief work there last year.
And when you say there, are you referring to the cat clinic?
Yes, sorry. Yes, he did many days at the cat clinic last year.
He stated in a letter of support that is in the exhibits that you have gone to the clinic 7 days a week to take care of the pets. Do you know, if you know, basically, let me go ahead and finish the question. If you know, what did Dr. Taylor mean when he says that you took care of the pets?
I came in and I did feeding and watering. And if there was any questions, I would contact him and let him know if there was a problem and blood work came in. If there was abnormalities or anyway, I would have him look at it. And if there was something that he needed to do, and that's how I helped him. And during the daytime, I would help by taking blood and running, making sure all the laboratory work got out for him.
Did you say that you would take the blood from the animals?
I would help the technicians take the blood from the animals. Sorry, I misspoke, and make sure that everything got out.
Did you at any point sell the cat clinic?
I did sell the cat clinic, but it turns out that the buyer never made any payments, and so we mutually agreed that I would take it back.
When did that occur?
It was in May of 2019. It was sold in November of 2018, and then in May of 2019. I went to the attorney because she wasn't making any payments and asked for the sale to be rescinded.
In your resume, you state that as part of your current work at the cat clinic, you supervise veterinary technicians. Can you explain your work in supervising veterinary technicians?
Just helping them. First of all, I do the hiring with Dr. Kane's approval, and then set up hours that they're to be there, and I help them with getting organized, and so they can get throughout their day and help move the cats that come in the clinic through in a timely manner.
You also state that you assist patients during exam, radiological, dental, surgical, and laboratory procedures. Can you please explain how you assist in those areas?
Sure. In all those, well, except for dental, because they're asleep, in all those areas, you need to have somebody that's holding in control of the animal. And so I help them with holding. I help another person, one of the technicians I hold when we're doing x-rays. And I do help with the dental x-rays.
How do you help with dental x-rays?
Working with one of the technicians, helping with the computer and getting it set up just right. You have to measure angles so you can properly get the truth definition and see the roots.
You also state in your resume that you assist foster parents that are I don't have it exactly in front of me, but essentially assisting foster parents in keeping their wards healthy. How do you assist foster parents? And also, are you referring to foster parents of animals?
I am referring to foster parents. Basically, a lot of people find baby kittens, and I work with Kittyland, and they don't know how to take care of them. The simple things, they don't know what milk to buy, what kind of bottle to use, that they need to be stimulated, and things like that. So I try to help get them set up so that they can have a healthy kitten and raise them so they'll live and stay with us.
You spoke briefly about having contact with a sponsor and attending women's groups. Do you still attend the women's groups?
I did up until the time that COVID came, because they have not been holding the groups. I talked to certain people within the groups, but they are not having any meetings either in person or virtually. But Lynn, who is one of the reference letters, she's in the group that I work with in Yucca Valley, and I see her every other week. And I speak to Kim almost every day. And the Buddhist Center has been closed, and I go to the Buddhist Center every time a lot. So it's been pretty crazy this last year with COVID.
Do you see a therapist?
I just work with a therapist at Betty Ford.
How often do you see the therapist at Betty Ford?
For the first 3 months of this year, I was talking to her every week, and now it's every other week. But if that would make any difference, I would be more than happy to go back to every week again.
Do you have a sobriety date?
Yes, August 25th, 2017.
Are you an alcoholic or an addict?
Yes.
Do you have a relapse prevention plan?
Yes, I do. It's basically, I work with Kim, and that happens, as I said, almost every single day. We're together, and she's part of that. I also have my husband, who is supportive and would, if there was a problem, be there to help me. Working with Betty Ford, and as I said, all my friends are sober, and that is a very big help. And they recognize anytime when you might be getting stressed that they talk to you so that you won't go over a line. And in terms of other things, my meditation, exercise, and I do a lot of self-care, massages. Sorry, he escaped. Sorry. Very sorry she got out of her room. And that seems to serve me well. If I seem to feel like I'm getting stressed out, I talk to people now, and that's something I didn't do before. I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to let off stress in a healthy manner, and I feel like I do now.
Are there any additional rehabilitative or corrective measures that you have taken since your license was surrendered that you haven't already discussed?
Some online things that I look at and work with, but nothing that has a hat that I can actually show you. As I said, I went to the Buddhist Center, work with Kim, work with women's groups, and do a lot of self-care.
If your license is reinstated and you have a lot more on your plate, I guess you could say, being a veterinary doctor again, would you be able to continue with these rehabilitative or self-care measures that you have discussed?
Yes, I am quite sure that I would. I now have, because Thursday afternoons are my afternoons to meet with the counselor, to always go to the gym and do some, oftentimes I get a massage on Thursdays. And no matter what happens, I've made it a rule that I have to do that. If we have to, if the doctor can't do work because I can't be there to hold for somebody, they will get referred. And I won't give that up because I do not ever want to be back where I was. And I won't let that happen. I've learned how to say no.
You briefly discussed this at the beginning of your statement, but if you can, again, state why it is that you would like to have your license reinstated.
I'd like to have my license reinstated. I have learned over these 3 years just how much I love veterinary medicine and how much I miss being able to work with the animals and the clients. I've learned just how important it is to me, and it's very important. I want to always be of service, and I feel that me being a veterinarian is the best way that I can be of service for both the people and the animals.
Did you go through the 12 steps as part of the group that you were in prior to COVID?
Yes, we have gone through the 12 steps.
And have you actually gone through them?
Yes.
What step was the hardest for you?
I couldn't hear you.
What step was the hardest or most difficult for you to go through?
I honestly think that the most difficult is just the admission that you need help and going to all the people that you needed to say you were sorry to. But admitting that you need help, I think, is the beginning and the most difficult part.
How can you assure the board that you will not divert drugs from your clinic if your license is reinstated?
I have thought about that. And as I mentioned before, there are some new products that are available, things like called a Cubex. You can't even open it unless you have a fingerprint. It works on fingerprints and you have to say how much of a drug you're taking out. I would plan, while I don't have a DEA license, to have no access to whatsoever. If the daughter came, if we had something that she could come down and, administer the drugs. And if I get my DEA license, we work through Cubex, work through a technician that has a controlled substance license, and be very careful that all the records are kept perfectly, or as perfectly as possible.
How can you assure the board that you are safe to practice as a veterinarian?
I can assure the board that my love of veterinary medicine and what I've learned over the last few years can sustain me, and I want to be of service and to be of help to the animals, and I do not see me ever going back again. And also, as I said, the employees know, and there would be no way that they would let something slip by. I'm sure they would call the board or the police if they ever thought I was doing something.
If your license is reinstated and if the board determines that your license should be placed on probation, would you be agreeable to probation conditions?
Absolutely.
And how can you assure the board that you would be in compliance with any probation conditions this time around?
I would imagine there would be a possibility of having someone that I work with submit reports, and that the employees, as I said, I know that they would not allow anything to happen. They're very well in my situation. They wouldn't want it to happen for the animals nor for me. The safeguards that I put in place to make sure that I don't even have access, so there's never a question of whether there's any missing drugs or not. I wouldn't want that to be on either the other doctor or myself. I don't want access to them until I have if I get my own DEA license, and then that would be a difference. And I don't know when that would come or if it would come. Well, I think as supervisor and drug testing, I am doing drug testing, and we'll continue to do that. So I can send reports in.
Or have you finished everything? I don't want to interrupt you if you have more to say.
No.
Since you submitted your application for your reinstatement, have you been convicted of any criminal offenses?
No.
I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, the board members are going to ask questions. Dr. Nunez, do you have questions?
Yes. First of all, I know how difficult it is to come to a hearing like this, so you're doing great. I appreciate it. And I have a couple of questions just to clarify what I thought you said. I want to make sure I have that right. You were asked if you had identified some issues that led to your use of drugs. And you mentioned that you were having a difficult time transitioning from practicing in Guam
Yes.
and practicing here in California. That's
Yes.
the first one. And then the second issue was that you had to come to the realization that you couldn't save every animal. And then I think I heard you say something about a marriage.
Right. I was having a lot of difficulties in my marriage then.
Is this a different husband than you're currently married to, or is it?
No,
Okay. So
but it's worked out.
okay. So there was a problem with the marriage back then, and you worked out the issues. Good. And then the other thing you mentioned was depression, and I've heard from you some strategies that you're going to use to try to stay away from drugs and alcohol. You know your sobriety date, you have a sponsor, you do meditation, you have a circle of friends, a support group, personally and at work. Those are all great things. How did you come to the realization you can't save them all? What helped you out with that?
Honestly, I have the Vet Information Network. It's been a big help to me. Sometimes going through and just you're reading what other people go through, and I know there's other people like me that it affects greatly when you've done everything that you can and it doesn't work. But really going through VIN and talking to people, and the people at the Buddhist Center helped a lot too, in being able to be accepting for both if I've done my best but I can't save an animal, and to be accepting of the people who are their parents, who love them dearly, who sometimes can be difficult to deal with. And I think I've learned a lot about that. And I think the Buddhism has helped me quite a bit. And then
Yeah, it's been 4 years since you've been the doctor in charge of the
Right.
case, and there's going to be a transition from, you currently are in a hospital, you're helping out with payroll and blood collection and restraint. Are you prepared to take on that burden of being the doctor?
I am. I definitely am. I really look forward to it and being able to help again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions by Kathy Bowler?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, Your Honor. And thank you very much for coming, Rebecca. We all know, as Mark said, that this is very hard, it's stressful, it's even almost harder by Zoom because you're in this, you're talking to nothing as opposed to being in a room. So we really appreciate how hard it is. And I can sense from certainly the letters that you presented. You have a number of supportive letters from colleagues and friends and associates that you are very committed, and they're very positive letters. So that's obviously they're very committed to the profession and to cats and their health. I had a couple of questions, many of which have been answered, but between 2017, when your license was revoked, and it looks to me from your documentation, including what you just sent, the recent sort of entrance into the Hazleton Betty Ford system in late 2020 or early 2021. Were you in a formal program, Alcoholics Anonymous, meetings, drug testing? I saw also a reference that in 2016, you might have been in the Betty Ford program for 6 months as well. But I'm wondering what transpired in the 3 years. I know you've talked about, the self-help, the friends, a sponsor, and everything else. I'm just wondering about a formal program if you were in one.
Well, I wouldn't know. I was not in a formal program, so to speak. Kim is one of the managers at AA. She's my sponsor in Indio, and in terms of she worked with me through the steps, but we did that together. And the other things were not formal. The reason that I joined Betty Ford again is that I was obviously well aware that if I could have drug testing and proof that I was not on any kind of drugs or alcohol, that would not be sufficient to be able to ask for my license back unless I could show proof that I am working through this and I have drugs to show you.
In the Betty Ford Center program that you're in, how often is the drug testing?
It is once or twice a month, but it can be more frequent if that's necessary. They've already discussed, the counselor and I, that I might have to drug test more often, and they said that wasn't a problem.
And I think one of my last questions is, and we touched on a little bit, but obviously, and I think you also mentioned that your goal is to work part-time if you get your license back, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I think Dr. Nunez mentioned it. Obviously, if your license is back and you are the primary veterinarian, there will be a lot more stressors than you have now. And I know your system is set up now so that you can do the self-help and things like that. And you plan to continue with at least some of the daily calendar structure. I'm just wondering if you considered what you're adding to your program or your support system in order to help you with what will undoubtedly be additional stressors from being a presiding vet and losing cats, losing animals, and dealing with the clients and all the rest.
Right. I won't be the only veterinarian there. Dr. Kane is there, and she's a medical director, and I can work with her, and I think that she would be very quick to notice if anything were amiss. And I have a lot of people who support me. As I said before, when this all occurred, I was basically didn't have friends here, but I do now. I have lots of friends, and they are there, and we touch base virtually every day, and I think that can keep me stable. And everybody's sober. I think they would notice if something were happening and not let me just go and fall into that same pattern. I don't think that could ever happen.
One quick other question. I know a part of the, if your license was reinstated, obviously, I think there is payment still owed.
Yes.
I think it's 13,000, although it might be 9. I've seen 2 different numbers. And do you have the plans to be able to, I assume it could be on a schedule, but be able to repay those types of fees that would be still due?
Yes, I would plan on repaying them and have a little bit more of an income if I worked a couple of days a week. Be able to do that.
Thank you. That's really all I have, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does Dr. Bradbury have questions?
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Hi, Dr. Diaz. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I your letters really are quite commendable, and it does sound like you've done quite a bit in your life to help many animals and people through your work, and so that's great. I have a couple of questions, and I hope you understand that like some of these are just so I understand what happened a little bit better. And because it is a little bit unclear to me, it's sort of a big jump from, like uh, using drugs and alcohol to not really a big jump from using drugs and alcohol at all, but just that you went from uh, doing something to cope with your stress to then injecting drugs that you had at your hospital, and that's a pretty uh, heavy thing to have happened in your life. And it isn't, I'm not fully clear on how you did get rehabilitation from that. It's a pretty difficult place that you're in, and you're going to be in the same environment again. And so that to me is somewhat concerning, just overall. Uh, did when did you start using drugs?
Around 2010, 2011.
Was it all related to work stress, or were you using it recreationally?
No, not recreationally. It's pretty much related at that point to work stress.
Okay. And then when you first had your license, when you were first put on probation, they put you in the Maximus program, which had a lot of success, at least when they've gone over their letters. What happened there that led to the failure of that program and you in that program?
I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready to change then. And I was unable at that point to conform. And I am now. I've been able to take what I learned at Betty Ford. I spent 90 days at Betty Ford, and I've been able to take what I've learned there to really solidify my day-to-day actions.
It was the Betty Ford clinic. I saw in some of the documents that was another kind of confusing thing. It looked like 2012 you were in Betty Ford, and then I saw like 2012 to 2017. Can you kind of go through the steps in your rehabilitation? That'd be really
Absolutely.
helpful. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I know it's difficult.
In 2012, I did outpatient program at Betty Ford at night, and that was somewhat helpful, but I just wasn't really ready, and I didn't learn enough to be able to control the stress levels for me. And then in 2016, I spent time as 30 days in inpatient. I did another month as a what they call day patient, and then I did the outpatient for another 30 days. And I did learn a lot. I wasn't ready to use it, but I did learn what the basics I needed to know. And I started out to say this before, losing my license was probably the best thing that happened to me, because I had to really take a good look at what I was doing. And it's made all the difference for me. When I left, when I just surrendered it, I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a veterinarian. Now I know I really do. It's a privilege to be a veterinarian, and I really want to do it again.
Okay. So in there was also the Maximus program, right? So it was like 2016, and then it was like, was it 2016 to 2017 when you were trying to do the Maximus program?
Yes.
Okay. And then when they came in and I think the inspectors came and they asked you to do a drug test and it was negative, that in 2017, or was that when you?
It was in 2017.
Okay. And so when you surrender, or when we took your license rather, when your license was revoked, what did you do to like at that point to finally get to the to sobriety?
Well, one, I stayed home and had time to really think about what had happened, why it had happened, and what I needed to do to get myself back. At that point in the beginning, I wasn't even worried about, whether I was going to be able to be a veterinarian again or not. I just knew I had to work with myself. And that time is what I needed to be away, to understand myself, to understand the situation, to truly understand that there's nothing that can't be made worse by drinking or taking drugs. And so I started, with a lot of time. I started going to the Buddhist Center more often, and I was going there 3 or 4 times a week until COVID hit. But I do some Zooms with them for meditation. I learned how to meditate. I worked with my women's groups, and they were very good about going over why things happen in your life. Are you carrying, and Betty Ford did this somewhat too, things that you carry from childhood that you think by the time you're 60 years old would all be gone, but sometimes they're lurking in the back of your mind and you don't know it. And so I was able to look at a lot of different aspects of my life from the time I was 5 years old until the time till now, up until the time that I got off. And I was able to find the key to a lot of the pain that caused my depression, as well as the problems in my marriage.
Okay. Thank you. No, that's difficult. The last question I have is actually related to CE. I see that you've been taking a lot of CE. I didn't see any of it on the controlled substance. I think it was a controlled substance logging or something on did you ever do any CE on that?
Yes, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I didn't include things that far back. I did do a class, and I'm actually signed up on VIN to do another class with them. I think it's coming up. It's a self-paced class. It's not one where you have to go every week. And so I have that just to refresh my memory.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I did have one last question, and that's you weren't supposed to have a managerial or administrative role at the hospital. It sounded like in one of the letters, it was from the medical director, that you were kind of doing some of the administrative stuff now. It maybe I miss.
Well, administrative stuff in terms of like doing payroll, health insurance, things like that. Not hospital. I mean, it's not, nothing to do with the medical part of it. She does all of that.
Okay.
I get the bookkeeper grunt work.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Diaz, and I'm really glad that you found a way to learn how to cope with things. It will be harder once you start practicing again, so I encourage you to stay active with your community.
Thank you.
Does Jennifer Laredo have questions?
I do. First off, Dr. Diaz, hello. Thank you for being here. And I wanted to say I enjoyed your cat. I recently lost my cat. He really liked being involved in these meetings as well. So if he were here, he would be
the one.
Oh, yes, that one. There was not a room I could put him in, he couldn't break out of. So I wanted to just ask one thing. You had mentioned a lot of the safeguards that you would have in place if you were to have your DEA license reinstated and maybe not having access to the controlled substances. We're not here to pass judgment at all. We just want to make sure that the public is protected. So I'm wondering if you have any plans in place for the event where you do have access to those controlled substances. As the veterinarian, you may be in a situation where you're administering them or maybe fostering a pet at home to have those substances, and just if you have a plan to avoid, a relapse.
Yeah, I do, and I think the new things like Cubex that they have available are going to be very helpful with that, because you can't open them unless they know who's opening the door and how much you're supposed to be taking out. And that's one of the safeguards that I think that would be there, and we'd be able, and also it'll do your drug logging for you, which would make life much nicer I think for everybody else in that office. The people with a controlled substance license I would have them verify everything at no less than once a month. And I would only have to do an inventory every 3 months, but I would have an inventory done every month by the person with a controlled substance license. And those are things that can be done physically. And of course, I have my support groups. And I honestly think I want this so bad that I don't feel that I could ever screw this up like I did before.
Okay, so just to clarify, you don't plan to avoid handling the controlled substances forever. It's just more of a checks and balances and having somebody verify amounts and things like that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Might I ask a question? I just want to interject to make sure I have a point. You've mentioned the word Cubex. I don't know what the spelling is and what it does.
Okay, it's CUBEX. And it has individual drawers for each of the medications. And in order to be able to take any of the medications out, it identifies people by fingerprint, and you have to tell it how much you're taking out right then and there. So if were any kind of significant difference, it would be so apparent right away, and everybody would know. You can get a list of who has been in them taking drugs out of the machine.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to have interrupted. Ms. Laredo, do you have more questions?
I do not, thank you.
Oh, okay. Dr. Nolan, do you have questions?
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you for coming before the board. I mirror all the comments made earlier about how difficult it must be, and I appreciate you coming. And most of my questions were answered, and this one is a little just my curiosity. What do you miss the most about day-to-day practice, and what are you most apprehensive of if you go back to practice?
What I miss most is being able to work with the clients and the patients, and it's always so rewarding when you can help them. Even if they have a bad disease like chronic kidney disease, but be able to help them, give them a better life for the time that they have left, and maybe lengthen a little bit through interventions. And I love working with people, and I'm looking forward to that part. I do believe that the hardest for me, I think the very hardest part is going to be when you look at something and you go, it's got a creatinine of 20 and a BUN of 400, and you're not going to be able to help them. And I still think that's I think I can deal with it better, but I do think that will always be something that makes me sad, and probably the most difficult part.
Thank you very much.
Any more questions? Okay.
No.
Ms. Prado, do you have questions?
Yes, just one, and like everyone else, thank you for being here. What is the one thing that you have found that brings you the most joy?
Actually, kittens, being able to help baby kittens, and I know some vets don't do it, but I still foster orphan kittens during the year, and it's such a joy to raise them and then find a home for them, and I enjoy that a lot. And I love being around cats. I just love them. Something that started when I was 5 years old, and it's just grown stronger over my life.
Thank you so much. No further questions, Your Honor.
Does Alana Yanez have questions?
Hi, Dr. Diaz. Thank you so much for coming. I just wanted to commend you for coming out here today. I know it's rough to come and testify at these hearings, so that was all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, can I have an opportunity to ask another question?
Absolutely.
Dr. Diaz, you're still doing great. I have another question, though. I was a little bit confused about your ownership and management of the practice. One of the reasons why your probation was revoked was that you were still performing management activities, and your response during your testimony was that there were other people that you had thought were the managing license holders
Right.
or something like that.
Yes. If you go back and look on it during that time, either Dr. Roberts or Dr. Kane were on the permit, and they.
Yeah, let me finish my question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't really need you to explain the details.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that was a little confusing to me. And then there was also a mention about you had sold the practice, but then took it back because the person wasn't making payment. And the third thing that you'd mentioned was that you seem to be at the hospital a lot, helping out, doing payroll, restraining, collecting blood and things like that. My question is there a control issue you have with a CAP clinic? And if there is, do you think that might be a potential source of stress that you may not be able to cope with?
No, I don't think I have a control issue. Dr. Kane sets all the medical procedures and what the standards are, and I have no problem with that. I don't go in 7 days a week anymore. I've hired people that go in. We're closed now on Saturdays and Sundays, and I've hired people that come on Saturday and on Sunday to take care of the animals and do the feeding. And they contact the doctor if there's any problems or anything they see that they think she needs to know about. So I'm not doing that anymore. I honestly, if I could hire somebody, I would probably take more days off, but I can't. I put an ad in Indeed and I was able to hire one person. We need 3. And it's just so short staffed.
Yeah, I'm the medical director of my practice, and I know the temptation that hospital needs you all the time. And if you don't have proper tools to deal with that temptation, then it could lead to overworking yourself. But that's not an issue for you.
I not anymore. It's not. They said like on Thursdays I leave at noon, so I have things that I have scheduled for Thursday afternoons, and I leave no matter what. And sometimes the doctor has to call her husband in to help, but I leave because I know it's important that I continue to have boundaries. And if I have my meeting with Betty Ford, and I have my massage, and I have other things that I do on Thursdays, I go do them. And I think that's something that's very different in my life that I couldn't do, but I can now.
Okay, good for you.
Do any of the other board members have other questions you would like to ask at this point, sort of circling around again? Okay. Ms. Seamantle, do you have questions you would like to ask in addition?
No, thank you.
So we have Exhibit 7, which is the Hazelden Betty Ford document that 7 pages that was sent around by email. And I'm wondering whether you have any questions about that, Ms. Seamantle.
I do not. I would only like to bring up that in the other exhibits, personal information was redacted, and in that Exhibit 7 that was sent, I know there is at least petitioner's date of birth that is included, and I don't know if there's any other information in there that petitioner would like to have redacted for purposes of the exhibit.
Okay. Ms. Diaz, do you have any concerns about this information being public? This is, after all, a public record.
No, I mean, as long as my birth date, and my social security aren't there, I'm fine with that.
Okay, so you would like to have your birth date, social security number redacted, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, but the rest of this can be seen as medical information, which has some protections. You're okay having this as a public document?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then Exhibit 7 is admitted for all purposes, and I will make sure that the document that is filed has the redactions.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, Ms. Diaz, you have an opportunity to give a summation, a final statement, things you might wish to say while still under oath, given the questions that have been asked. So this is your opportunity. Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for allowing me to even submit this petition. I really appreciate it. I have outlined basically what I've done, and I would just want you to know that being able to practice veterinary medicine again is incredibly important to me. And I feel that I would make everyone proud if I do. So I care very much about the animals and the people. And I do believe that the safeguards that I have in place are going to help me get through times of stress. I know sometimes there will be things that are upsetting, but prior to 2011 and 12, I was always able to handle these, and I feel solid now like I did before the problem started. And I do think I could make you proud.
Ms. Seamantle, is there anything you would like to say by way of summation?
No, thank you.
Okay, then the documents are admitted and the testimony has been heard. The record is closed and we will go into executive session. And the court reporter, can you please tell me how many pages?
Yes, Your Honor. 45 pages.
45. Thank you very much. Okay, then we are off the record and I will hand the baton back to Dr. Nunez.
So I believe at this point we go into closed session to deliberate the matter.
That's correct.
Correct. And so Justin Sotelo and Tara Welch will remain on from staff, and then everybody else will leave the meeting.
Thank you very much.
And then you'll let me know when we're secured.
So this is the moderator. Just want to confirm all members, of course, will stay in the room, as well as our Honorable Judge Aspinwall. Timothy, does he leave the room?
Jessica had said that there was a couple of staff members from the board that remain.
Yes, I
Tara,
believe it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, it's going to be Tara Welch, Justin Sotelo staying in. Everyone else is out other than ALJ Aspinwall and the board members.
And the members. So I think everybody is out. Let's see.
And we're no longer broadcasting.
We are going to stop the recording.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks for sticking in there. We left off with the combined report of licensing and examination by Timothy. Is Timothy back?
He is.
Yes, I am here.
Okay. So does anyone have any additional questions for Timothy? And I'll see if I can open up the chat. So if you're raising your hand, I can see it. Dr. Bradbury.
Okay, so the only question I had, and it's not maybe specifically for Timothy, but it was regarding on the RVT school inspection. I guess it says that the school and degree programs whose candidates tested below 10% of the state average pass rate for first-time candidates appear in bold and red text. It seemed to me that there's no way to know that they're first-time candidates. And so I guess I just am, after our meeting this morning or our discussion this morning, wondering how we're determining that and whether that's an appropriate way of measuring things.
So we get all this information directly from the AAVSB and a document that we then have to parse out using the school codes that they have provided. So they have identified first-time test takers on the document that we receive.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Any other board members have any questions? I was a little bit confused about those tables because it looked like, did Carrington College also fall below? Because there's two columns that are in red for 2018, 19, and 1920.
There was the Carrington College in Pleasant Hill that did, in Sacramento.
So do we have to do the same thing with them? Do they have to go get a notice of probation?
Oh, for the school inspections. Let me see.
Or is that pass rate or is that inspections?
So it depends on which one you're looking at. The first table, it does show that they did fall below, but keep in mind that it's for 2 consecutive years. And so that's why you're not seeing 2 years under probation. And then you're only seeing the San Joaquin Valley College that had the 2 years in red. And then for inspections, you see multiple that are in red for 2 consecutive years. And that was discussed at the last board meeting about whether or not the board should be going out and inspecting those facilities. And the board had decided at that time to wait because of COVID times to not go out and do the inspections. But we were going to still send notification out to those schools to let them know that they have fallen below that 2-year, that pass rate for 2 consecutive years, and to get information as to why that has occurred.
And have we sent that notification out?
We have not yet, and that's on me, members. I still have to finalize that letter with Tara and then be able to send that out to them.
Because I think I was confused because all of the charts on the top says pass rate.
So they're looking at 2 different data sets. The one at the top for the probation is the first-time test takers.
Yeah.
And the one for inspection is for yearly pass rate. So it's the all-encompassing pass rates.
Okay, got it.
That tripped me up several times too, looking at the regulations, trying to get the difference.
Got it.
Can I, while we're on this table again, this Kathy, do we know what, I know what our current rules say about, for a period of 2 years, it falls below or whatever. Do we know, Jessica, what the AVMA or the other accreditation agencies, what their criteria is for sort of probation or inspection or any kind of oversight how many years if the pass rate falls below?
That I'm not certain, and I do have a follow-up meeting with the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education on this topic. Because I've already met with them a few times in preparation for this meeting, but I do hope to have them come out at the July meeting and provide more information. I don't know specifically about pass rates, but you hear today from San Joaquin Valley College who said that AVMA is going toward making it to where they have to do the 50% pass rate. But I hope to have more information on that in July.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any more hands raised. Do we have any public members in the audience? Nancy?
We have a few.
Okay, so can we open it up? Actually, what we're going to do is open it up after all the reports have been given. So let's move on to probation.
Could we do enforcement first?
Yes.
Before probation? Okay. Let's do enforcement, Rob.
All right. Can you see me? Is it? There we go. Hello? Let's jump into this real quick. Okay, so some pretty big news from enforcement. As I mentioned during the last board meeting, we did fill the 6 limited term positions, which is great. 2 of the positions, we are still waiting for them to transition because they are currently with VMB. They were from licensing, but we're waiting for their replacements in licensing to be fully trained. Although one of the 2 has already started to look at some cases just to get her feet wet, which is great. And then we're continuing to provide them with guidance, both from the peers and management, and have our roundtable meetings so that they can learn about cases and really get up to speed as fast as possible. In order to handle the additional analysts and the additional staff, we did hire a new enforcement manager by the name of Matt McKinney. And I actually don't see him in here, but I'll send him a chat request and maybe he can say hello near the end. Let's see here. The other position that we ended up filling was an office technician position for probation, because probation was definitely understaffed for the amount of work that they have. So that office technician position was filled by actually one of our enforcement technicians. So we had to repost that position, and we're in the process of getting that filled. I made a conditional offer, or I'm in the discussions right now of filling that position, and then we should be fully staffed. And then we will also have another probation monitor position coming up here, I believe, in the next month or 2. Well, it would be after July 1, which I think will greatly help out our probation unit, because 1 probation monitor for the amount of probationers we have was just not, I mean, it wasn't feasible to keep up with the workload. Let's see, so the Office Attorney General, we're continuing to work on the oldest cases, and sorry, it's the Teams meeting coming in. We're continuing to work on the oldest cases. Unfortunately, these are the toughest, most complex cases. A lot of them have been touched many months and years ago, and we're trying to pick up the pieces at this point. And that is kind of correlated in our stats with the amount of cases that we're closing, and then it's also going to correlate with those cycle times, because those old cases are now going to start hitting our stats. Although for many of these cases that are older, we tend to have more recent complaints as well, so that kind of offsets it. And when I say recent complaints, it's against the same subject. We've been working hand in hand with our DAG liaison, Karen Denver, as usual. She's been just an extremely large help to enforcement, and she actually helped us out with one of our sunset review projects that we had to work on regarding the cost recovery, which was a pretty massive project that all of enforcement, well, not all of enforcement, but several of the enforcement staff have had to drop what they're doing to pull paper files and find this data for the legislature. Intake unit, they continue to meet their 10-day target of assigning complaints, which is great. Once again, due to that sunset project, we did fall behind a little bit on our complaint assignments. So there was a little bit of backlog of complaints to be assigned to analysts, which is at 40 complaints. I think it's around 30 complaints now, but they should be able to take care of that probably right around the end of the month, thereabouts. And as far as the projections go for complaints, on this report, I put 1,300 complaints, but it looks like combined with our conviction complaints from our applicants, we'll probably have more than 1,400 complaints this year, which is going to be the highest number we've had of any year. And then, of course, it's still over half of the complaints are alleging negligence and incompetence, which is the highest priority complaints listed in statute, which obviously makes it hard to prioritize those complaints since they're all high priority. We still have quite a few complaints that are over 3 years, and obviously those are the complaints that we are aimed at. So when we have our twice weekly meetings, we actually go over everybody's complaint load, and those are the complaints that we focus on because those are the oldest complaints and the highest priority complaints. We are over 3,000 complaints in our backlog, which is obviously pretty massive, and we want to take care of that as soon as possible. Having these 6 additional analysts is going to be a huge help in slowing that backlog down and then starting to cut into it. But as I said, it's just really digging in and taking care of those old complaints, which are, like I said, just extremely complex. D of I usage, it's pretty consistent with what we were doing before. We're really minimizing our D of I usage. Obviously, that's a huge cost to the board. And we have the benefit of having an inspection program that we can utilize for the majority of our cases where we need somebody to go out and actually pull records or see what's going on at a facility. So we are continuing to do that. Inspections and Patty's team has also made our older cases that we're working on, which would obviously be any of our cases, they've made it their priority as well when we have an inspection requested as a result of a complaint. Let's see, the expert witness program. So during the MDC meeting on Wednesday, I did chime in and just dovetail on what Dr. Laz was talking about. The complaint audit subcommittee was able to review 8 cases, which weren't limited to those that were just had an expert witness involved. So there were some petitions to revoke, there were some citations, just so that the subcommittee could be aware of everything that happens in enforcement. We also included some of the time frames so they could help identify bottlenecks as well as the costs. And as I mentioned during the Wednesday meeting, I was pretty happy with the results because the subcommittee identified areas that we have already addressed and have been addressing for the past few months and I guess years actually. So we'll soon see the fruits of that labor when we start to get into some of our newer cases that we have implemented these efficiencies for. And then let's see, it goes over some of the strategic plan accomplishments, and these are just based on the new strat plan objectives. And some of our mail vote results, and then the normal performance measures as well. And let me see. It looks like Matt is here. I wanted to introduce him to the board. Is there a way we can get Matt promoted so that he can introduce himself? Oh, okay, cool. Looks like he's in. All right. So let's see. Matt, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I was just trying to get my video to make sure it's working and everything.
We can hear you.
Cool. Hi, yeah, my name is Matt McKinney. I kind of missed what Rob was saying about me before, so I'll just briefly give some of my background. I've been with the Department of Consumer Affairs for 12 years, and I've been working at different boards over the past 8 years in enforcement as like an enforcement analyst. So it's my first job as a manager, and I'm really excited to be on board and helping, provide some of the skills and expertise that I have in both DCA enforcement processes and Breeze enforcement processes and tackling that caseload that Rob was just mentioning. So happy to be here and happy to answer any questions anybody has for me, if any, today.
What Rob said before you came on was that you're going to close all these backlogs within 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, that's
what he promised.
Yeah, I did make a lot of promises. So
I don't know how he's going to do it, but whatever.
how to get my foot in the door somehow. But yeah, we'll do our best.
Were there any questions about the report?
I had some questions.
Sure. Okay.
First of all, thank you to you and your team for not getting depressed with all these number of backlog cases. Those numbers I know are big, and my heart goes out to you.
I really appreciate you recognizing that, Doctor. I really do.
Work and not getting discouraged.
Thank you.
And, the old cases are, I think somewhere else on this report you said that we're number one as far as the number of complaints within the CA. So go team, we're number one on that. Two things, the old cases that always seems to be the big wrench in the system is the old cases because they're so complicated. Would it be even possible to think about an amnesty for really old cases? Is that
well, we wouldn't do that summarily, but we definitely consider the age of the cases when we investigate them. That's definitely a strong consideration. So some of these cases that are old, which at the time, if they're several years old, let's say they might have resulted in a citation or even transmittal, we're going to use the lowest level of discipline possible. So if there hasn't been a repeat occurrence or if there's been sufficient showing of rehabilitation, we're definitely going to consider that. And I think that ties into the age of those cases just overall. So absolutely, we're considering that. But we wouldn't say we're going to cut these off at this date range and go from there because, we have our mandate of obviously investigating all these cases, and we're definitely going to do it, which I know it'd be very easy and it's tempting sometimes, but there are cases to where it's old and we see just a little nugget of something that doesn't sit right, and we have to look into it, and sometimes it does result into something that is actually worse than we may have thought. So we do have to fully investigate these cases.
I mean, I know we have frequent flyers, so maybe
we do.
Old cases that haven't had a complaint since then might be one way to start weed them out on what we can close.
Definitely, absolutely. I think that's a really strong consideration that we have is just if there hasn't been a repeat, if it looks like it's a total single one-off occurrence, then that's going to weigh strongly, I think, in the subject's favor, certainly.
And then under Strat Plan Objective 1.4, you had said that as noted above, those cases, as far as the priority, complaints are prioritized if they involve negligence that resulted in harm or death to an animal, and half of the complaints are based on that. The last sentence you wrote was, given the significant number of first priority cases, the statutory priority list should be re-examined. Are you seeing changes in regulations, or what are you asking there or suggesting?
I mean, I think it would be wise to. I mean, obviously, if our number one priority results in 54% of our cases being put in that bucket, so to speak, I think we need to re-examine the size of that bucket because it doesn't help us at all if the overwhelming majority of our complaints fall into that bucket. So I think we just need to maybe get a little bit more. I'll use the word granular, maybe with those that priority system, and maybe take another look at that to see if it needs to be updated or further kind of parsed out, and figure out if we can get something to where it says, okay, our highest priority complaints are maybe, I don't know, I'm throwing this out here, 10%, because that seems like, okay, 10% of our complaints, that's more reasonable. It's something that we can reasonably prioritize and say, okay, we're going to attack these 10% because these are top priority. I think it loses its value when you have more than half of them automatically by default fall into that highest priority.
Yeah. Is that something you think you can do in-house though, or does there need to be regulatory or legislative fixes?
I believe that, I think that'd be a statutory change. So I certainly think we'd have the information, or at least we would be able to access what priorities or buckets we could come up with. Obviously, the board is going to know, and I think they came up with it before, but
you're right.
I think that's something worth looking at.
These are unattainable if we're number one in complaints and half of them are priorities. So
yeah.
Is that something that we can put on a future agenda item?
That'd be great.
Yeah, we can do that either in July or October. And that is something that the board has put on part of their strategic plan objectives, is to reevaluate that mandate.
Okay, so I'm seeing some hands up with Kathy.
Thanks, and thanks, Rob, for this. Yeah, on that, I was just thinking when we were talking about this reprioritization or sort of tiering these negligence cases or whatever in terms of making them priority, 1A, B, C, and D or something like that. And but I know there's only so much you can do. You have to do the investigation to really see the the extent of the complaint sometimes doesn't tell at all. And so I know it's not as easy as just looking at a complaint and slotting it into a bucket per se.
Yeah.
So I know there's time in there. But I think it's great that we'll consider it. Maybe we can all put our heads together and help out with some ideas on that. I had a quick question. And since Mark and I were in the Sunset Review hearing and Jessica intimately involved, the legislature.
Great job, by the way.
Well, I had a serious migraine that day, so I can't say I was great. Mark was great. Anyway, we had a lot of very valid questions and well-meaning questions by legislators that really are, I think, in trying to get to the bottom of bottlenecks, sort of imposed, either AG imposed or state imposed things that are on the boards that are hampering the boards. And to get to some of that, Senator Roth asked for a lot of data from us, and he's asking it from other boards as well. And not that there was any problem with our data. He was just trying to get to the questions about why regulatory stuff takes so long, what these DOJ cases costed. You guys have been doing, it sounded like you had to divert, our hearing was whatever it was a month ago, and divert a lot of staff to gathering this information for them. I just wondered, how is that data gathering complete now?
It is, yes. It took a little bit longer than we had hoped, and I think that was just expected. I think I said when I first came on board that a lot of the data was a little bit questionable. There wasn't a lot of consistency with how it was entered and where it was stored. And I'm really appreciative of the staff for kind of keeping a stiff upper lip and delving into this, because they had to pull hundreds and hundreds of physical files and go through these physical files, and go through them one by one. Obviously, what we're doing now, and I think it speaks volumes, is we're utilizing the Breeze system to store that data, because ideally, if it had been used in the system to begin with, there's a tab that actually says costs, and we have been putting the cost for AG, court reporter, OAH. We could actually just run a report and say, get us all the costs for every final discipline between this year and this year, and we're done. So we're utilizing that tab now, of course, but we had to pull them just to get that data. So it was definitely a pretty big resource drain, and I think that's reflected in the stats. But obviously, it's important to know that data, and I think it's important that the legislature is aware that the cost recovery, and I think I mentioned it during the MDC meeting, is not going to be anywhere near than the costs that are actually incurred, not by a long shot.
And that's what I don't think a lot of people understand. And when the board gets tasked with more missions, and we're not even being able to cover the ones that we have, and we're not getting cost recovery on these investigations, and et cetera, for lots of reasons, it's just, you can't get blood out of a turnip. And I know Jessica's done a lot of work with D of I, trying to figure that whole thing out. But, I think maybe we'll get some relief, but I know that was a big data issue for you guys to have to go through. So I'm glad you're finished with that. Thank you. And welcome, Matt. Glad to have you on board. Oh, one other quick thing I thought.
Thank you.
Now that you have all 6 of the staff, and we have Matt, who's going to fix everything.
Right.
Yeah. Do you feel like by our next meeting in July, because I don't really know the extent of how the investigations have to go and everything, we're going to see some changes in these stats? We're always going to be getting more complaints, but are we going to now see the 6 staff rolling the program sort of with?
I am hoping so. Like I said, 30% or 33% of our 6 are still not even able to work on cases at this point. So
Okay.
once they're able to, we're going to have to get them up to speed. Obviously, there's going to be a learning curve because these cases are definitely more complex than even what Matt and I are used to at our prior boards. And even the AG's office has admitted and said that our cases are among the most complex out there. So that really speaks to what they're dealing with. So I really hope so. I would think that it's going to be at least several months for them to get the new people to get up to speed and get into their own groove, so to speak. I mean, but from there, I would say that it's going to be on an upward arc, and we'll eventually reach that. I mean, I don't want to say we'll plateau because I think there's always going to be efficiencies to implement, but it's definitely several months off because we are still ironing out some of our internal processes, some of our documents that we're utilizing. So we want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and it does take a lot of resources, not only from management, but the team has been great in reaching out to that new staff as well. And I know that sometimes the new staff is apprehensive and they think, oh, I don't want to bother Rob. And we have our one-on-ones, and I say, hey, let's talk about whatever you need. And anytime you want to call me, I have Teams on my cell and you have my cell phone. Call me anytime you have a question about a case. And some staff do it, but I feel like other staff, kind of feels guilty because they know that I'm very busy, but that's my job. But the other staff has really jumped in and helped each other. So it's really nice to see that. But of course, that does pull them away from doing what they're doing. So I think we'll get there, but it's just really tough right now.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're not in the same office. They can't walk right down the hall and collaborate, which is, I think, a real problem.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I just want to add to Kathy's question. The first one regarding the project pulling the data for Senator Ross' report. I believe that was all of that was completed yesterday. And so now I have to review all of that data and then compile the report that Senator Roth had asked for. And so that report is due to the legislature by next Friday. And so I'm going to be working my hardest to review all of that data and compile that report and send it to all of you for any kind of input. It will be a fast turnaround time. For that, I'm apologizing ahead of time. But I hope that it'll really shine a light on all of the processes that were in place in the past, the improvements that we've made, and then the costs associated with those process improvements. So we hope that all of that information is really enlightening for everybody. And then also regarding D of I, we're still waiting from our budget team on correct 2-year roll forward chart from D of I. Right now, it's hard to tell the exact amount of money that we've been spending because the information that we've been provided in the past, we have since learned is inaccurate. So we do hope to have that soon because that's another piece of this information that has to go into the report for Senator Roth. So I hope to have that soon. In regards to when we're going to see an improvement in the stats, I guess it depends on what portion of the stats you're looking at. Because if you're looking at cycle times, even with these new analysts, we hope that they will be closing more cases, but the cycle times themselves will most likely not improve for quite some time because again, we're looking at the 2016 cases, the 2017 cases. And so when those are closed, they're going to increase in the cycle times themselves.
And that actually might be a better metric of seeing productivity. Just if you see the cycle times increase, since we are working on cases that are over 3 years old, that would be also a metric showing that work is being done.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Dr. Bradbury.
Sure.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Matt. I just
Hi,
wanted
Doctor.
to welcome you to the group, and I think it's really interesting that you're staying at the same hotel in Fresno as the speaker from the junior college is at. It's pretty cool. It's nice
Yeah,
hotel
thank you,
there.
Dr. Bradbury. There's a special on it, and so don't quite have the management salary yet.
It's
so
a
it's what I
Hyatt
can
place, I
afford.
think. Yeah. But I just wanted to try and, just give you guys some words of encouragement. I know that, it's hard to to probably prepare these charts and be like, oh, they look the same. But I've been here a couple of years now, I think, and I see a big difference in how these cases are being investigated. I feel like the MDC subcommittee is coming back with more positive reviews, and I can see improvement. I know the metrics don't necessarily show it, and I just appreciate all the work that you're doing, and I'm glad that you have a little bit more help. So Matt, get to
Thank
it.
you. Thank you so much. Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
Every day.
Yes, absolutely.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, and again, we'll give the public an opportunity when we hear all the reports. So we'll now move on to probation.
Hi, you guys. How you doing?
Great.
It's good to see you. So we have 88 licensees on probation, and we have 22 in a biological fluid testing program. We have, I think, 116 complaints open on about 29 folks. We sent a case over to the Office of the Attorney General to file a petition to revoke. I'm pretty excited about that. They haven't filed yet. I should probably check up on that. I haven't got the use of our technician yet, but I'm really excited about it. And Matt, he's new. We're breaking him in. We're trying to bend him to our will, but he is resisting.
So that's fiddle, Matt, by the way.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any questions? Well, that concludes my probation report.
Ginger,
Yes,
when is the
ma'am.
person start? When are you going to get your additional person that's fully trained and there? I'm sorry, it's in here probably, but I missed it.
No, I don't think it's in there. I've heard rumors that maybe July I'm going to get another analyst.
Okay.
Or that we're getting an analyst. That would be a peer of mine, and I would very much look forward to looking at taking a large portion of my caseload. Because then we could, instead of just kind of putting out fires, really, but I think there's probably more action would be coming soon. Training takes, a long time, but together, the way we've kind of set it up, where they have me as a lead, we do a lot of case reviews, and it would be good to have another analyst.
We get authority for the AGPA position on July 1. So we are now in the process of putting together the recruitment package. The hope is to start recruitment prior to July 1, so we can start the individual right on July 1. The office technician has been hired to help with probation. So between Ginger, the office technician, and the AGPA position, we hope to have a much stronger probation unit.
It's one person a unit does not make.
Not with 88 probationers.
Yes, ma'am.
Ginger, have you been able to acquire any new fountain pens?
Well, sir, and I see you're president now. My condolences. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've not. They've shut down all the fountain pen conventions this whole year, so.
Well, we should be open up after June 15th.
I got my vaccine yesterday, and I'm really not up to par today.
Great. Any further questions for Ginger from the board? Moving on to hospital inspections, I think, there's a question. No, there's not a question. Okay. I think Jessica is giving the hospital inspection report.
Yep, I'll be actually giving the last 3 reports. So for hospital inspections, Patty apologizes. She's not able to join us. She had to go to a funeral. So I'll be giving her report, not nearly as good as she would. So I apologize ahead of time. But the inspection unit is continuously working on the oldest inspections. And sometimes those inspections that they do are not as old as the inspections that are needed in enforcement. And so if there are 2016 enforcement cases that need an inspection performed, they are prioritizing those inspections and then working closely with the enforcement team. They continue to work with the Breeze team and our BIA, which is business integration analyst, with DCA to try to improve Breeze for inspections. And what they're finding is they have a lot more tools in one module, in the enforcement module versus the inspection module. And so they're working on transitioning into tracking cases with that enforcement module in mind. And so we can provide a lot more information that's helpful for the team and also for Patty as the manager over the team. She'll be able to provide full regular reports on how many inspections are assigned to each analyst. Right now, she doesn't have that capability to do. And also the inspections team, the analysts are not able to quickly identify what inspections are assigned to them because of the limitations in the module that they're using. When they transition over into enforcement, they will be able to gather that information. And so we believe that there's a lot of process improvements in Breeze that we're being able to utilize and will continue to utilize in the coming months. I think we mentioned the mobile app that the inspection unit hopes to use already. We think that will improve the system quite a bit when it comes to automating a lot of the manual processes that are happening right now with our inspectors. We do hope to have that roll out by the summer of next year. We're working closely with OIS and the chiefs of OIS to make sure that it's going to work well for us, for the dental board and for the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology. The inspections team has also worked closely with the MDC's inspection subcommittee. It did have Dr. Warner on it and also Jennifer Laredo. We actually had several meetings with the subcommittee. We had meetings with the executive officers of other programs within DCA that have inspections programs to learn a lot about their processes. We've also reached out to all the other state boards to gather more information about their inspection programs, because we're really devoted to trying to find ways to improve the process to make it more streamlined and be able to perform more inspections. So that's all I have for the inspection reports. Any questions?
Do you think 20% is still a reasonable number?
No, I never thought that the 20% was ever a reasonable number.
Is that another agenda item then?
Yeah, so that's something that the board has tasked the MDC to evaluate, and that's part of the subcommittee that they are evaluating. And Jennifer, I don't know if you want to share your thoughts so far on where we come with that 20% mandate.
Yeah, I think we proved that the 20% mandate is just not feasible. All of the other boards not only did not have that 20% mandate, one board doesn't even do random inspections. They only do complaint related. The other boards, I think we're the only ones who had contracted inspectors. They have 1 or 2 employees who do those inspections. So there was a lot of differences. I don't think 20% is reasonable, but I think that we can increase the number of inspections if we have the technology that Jessica's talking about and some of the other resources. But it was really eye-opening to see what the dental board does and what barber and cosmetology does. So I think really we have a very high standard, and considering the resources we have, we're doing an amazing job. We just, I think, need to change the 20% mandate to something that's more reasonable.
Has the subcommittee ever thought of things like, there's some hospitals that are AHA compliant, and which means that they've already passed a certain checklist, reached a certain level of standards. If maybe AHA compliant hospitals comply with our standards, because they're routinely inspected maybe once every 5 years or something like that.
I will let the subcommittee know.
Okay.
This is Kathy. I agree that 20% is probably not feasible, but I remember all our discussions prior to coming up with that. And, you know, what we had discovered was that many premises had never been inspected. You know, it might have been 10, 12 years. And we were trying to sort of boost the inspections to catch things before they become real problems. And maybe some boards don't inspect at all, maybe, and that's fine, I suppose. But I really think for the sake of the public protection and the animal protection and the employee protection in these premises, that our inspection program is really critical still. And we may want to lower that percentage, but the random, surprise inspections, I think are very helpful. And I think there's something we should, continue to try and aspire to do as many as we can, so that you don't have premises act for years and years. Maybe no complaints are ever filed, but there might be, some significant issues that we're not seeing. So anyway, and it's also a good educational tool. I wish we could do a little bit more of outreach and maybe a virtual inspection or something like that. I don't know, maybe, but that module will be very helpful. I hope the app, and so much of the bottleneck, at least in the reporting, was after the inspections were done, taking their form reports and keying them in, we were backlogged for a year on those. So anyway, we're making progress, but I'm not in favor of abandoning the goal. Maybe we lower it, but anyway, that's my opinion.
And AHA inspections are announced. That's another thing.
They're announced. Yeah. See, there's nothing like the walk-in surprise. Sorry.
Jennifer, I forgot. I think part of your normal report, Jennifer, would be to tell us how many committees you're currently on.
I think at this point it's 347.
No, it's not. I think it's like 25 or something, isn't it? Okay. Any other questions on hospital inspection? I don't see any hands. So Jessica, we'll move on to outreach.
So members, for outreach, I provided each activity that we've done since the last board meeting. That includes meeting with the associations, like Dr. Nunez had reported. I met at the Board of Governors, CVMA Board of Governors meeting on a Saturday and presented to them. During the MDC meeting, I requested assistance from the MDC to help create content for webinars. We're looking at creating webinars for the California law exam to transition that into more of a course rather than a one-time exam. We also want to provide an overview of the inspection program, enforcement program, and then the board as a whole. We feel like these webinars, if we post them on our website, we can provide free continuing education credits for them, and also really educate them on who we are and what our role is, and really ways to improve their program, their clinics, and to avoid any kind of enforcement actions. We've also increased the social media presence quite a bit since we had Justin start. He's doing an awesome job in sending out all of those communications. Kathy, I think you mentioned earlier on that you've seen a lot more communication. That is 100% Justin, and I just want to thank him for all of his hard work with getting all that communication out. We also have already mentioned the Who's Who flyer that was sent out. That was compiled mainly with the help of DCA's Office of Public Affairs. We had received input on the draft flyer from CARVDA. We had 3 CARVDA representatives take a look at it and provide feedback. We also had our legal counsel approve it before we sent it out. But Jennifer, I know that you had mentioned that you had some concerns or questions about it. If any of you have any questions or any suggested edits to that, please send them my way and we'll be happy to make those changes as necessary. The other part was the student liaisons. As part of a strategic plan objective 5.6, we wanted to appoint student liaisons to our board. Those would be part of the discussions. They wouldn't have any kind of vote and they wouldn't participate in closed session. But we're hoping to get 1 liaison from Western and 1 liaison from UC Davis. I've already reached out to both schools and they're both very excited about those opportunities. They believe the best time to roll that out is during the October meeting rather than the July meeting, mainly because in the July meeting there's no one on campus and they're all out, and so they would like to be able to elect those liaisons in August when they come back, and then have them first participate in the meeting in October. So with that, they did ask for feedback from the board of what criteria the board would like to look for. when they're looking at selecting that candidate, the time commitments. So I'd recommend, and this is something that I could draft and bring back to the July meeting, is making changes in the administrative procedures manual for the board and adding a section in there specific to student liaisons and how that would work. So I can bring that to the board in July. And that's it for my outreach report. Any questions?
Jennifer has her hand up.
Yeah, I know we already mentioned the flyer, and I think this is just me being cynical. It looks amazing. Infographics are just all the rage these days. I like that it's very clean and professional looking. My only hesitation, and I might be the only one who feels this way, is that it says the licensed staff, and then it says DVMs, RVTs, and VACSP. So I just thought it was a little misleading that a veterinary assistant controlled substance permit is a license, but it does explain that they have a background check. And then also under the duties of the RVT, it just doesn't exactly match what's in CCR 2036, but I thought it was very well explained on what they can and can't do. So I'm not necessarily requesting any changes. I think it looks great. Everybody seems to like it. I just thought that because we did hear that, you know, there's a hard time for hospitals to get RVTs to get their RVT license because there's not a big pay difference. I just thought that was a little confusing, but that's probably just me. It looks great. Whoever did it, very professional, and I nitpick with things like that. So great job.
Thank you.
Who was that legal team that reviewed this?
The best one DCA has to offer.
As far as criteria for a student liaison, I can't think of anything other than they have the time to commit. I think anyone in vet school is qualified.
Yeah, I think a time to it, and it would be useful for them to attend the MDC meetings if just to listen to, as well as the vet board meetings.
Yeah, I think
they had time.
I think freshmen maybe have more time than seniors. Maybe think of things like that.
On the form, on the vet who's who thing, Jessica, one thing I noticed that you have, it's just graphics, but it has inside the veterinary hospitals in blue, licensed staff is in blue, and then it goes to unlicensed staff. It seems like that's in black. It's kind of looks like it's part of the licensed staff. So maybe separating the unlicensed staff, which is on the cover page, making that blue, or so it's clear that veterinary assistants aren't licensed. Just because if you read it, you kind of keep reading and you assume that. The other thing I was going to say is that other outreach you've done in addition to our own California community, I think, which is bears mentioning, is to the really we've worked a lot more collaboratively with the AAVSB and utilizing the information they have from all the state boards. Obviously, California is the biggest and the best and the most complicated, as we know, bigger than most countries. But I think your outreach to and work with AAVSB has been helpful as well. And I think it should be considered because I think we're trying to take advantage of some of the things that have already been created that will help us. And you're doing a great job at doing that. So anyway, just wanted to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
I think Kathy's question was asked, so there's no other raised hands. Outreach or strategic plan.
So the next one is our strategic plan, and you can see that the attachment is just the action plan that the staff has come up with. After the board approved the strategic plan, we set up a meeting with Solid to create an action plan. So with each one, we came up with specific actions that we felt were necessary in order to complete the objectives of the board. That also has target dates for completion. And so after this meeting, every meeting thereafter will include an update on each and every action and the completion dates of each one. So we'll be providing that update for all of you. If any of you want to add to the action plans, feel free to send them my way and we can add to the action plans as well. But this was just our ideas of how we're going to implement the objectives. So any questions with that?
That's really great. Fantastic. Oh, I don't see any raised hands. So what I'd like to do is have the moderator open up for public comments on any of the reports that have been given.
My pleasure. This is the moderator. I have opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And seeing none, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please. Agenda item number 16, we've kind of covered the action items. The rest of the items on the agenda are just certain programs that AAVSB is working on right now. So if anyone has any questions on any of those, between Kathy and I, we can probably answer them. Let's open it up to members of the public if they have any questions on agenda item 16.
This is the moderator. If you would like to submit any questions, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And seeing none, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It is closed.
Agenda item 17, future agenda items and next meeting dates. We have the meeting dates listed. I assume that it's going to be still virtual.
Yep, so we do anticipate them being virtual. They are listed for the July meeting. We do have, like I mentioned before, we're going to bring the RVT program issue to the board. We're going to have an overview from ABMA, hopefully if we can get them scheduled for July, and from the Bureau of Post-Secondary Education to really educate the members on what is already being provided to these RVT programs. And also we'll be bringing back the admin manual for the board. We do have still quite a bit of legislation that will happen for the board. And then we might have some regulations to bring back depending on some public comment periods that will be closing during that time period. So, and I believe we have one petitioner. In October, we'll probably have all similar things, but we will be doing I believe we'll be doing recruitment for the RVT. So you'll be appointing a new RVT starting in January, but doing that in an October meeting, and then elections of officers in October as well.
Any questions? And do we open up 17 to the public as well? Okay.
This is the moderator. We've again opened the Q&A panel. If you'd like to submit a comment, please click on the Q&A icon on your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment" into the text field and submit that to all panelists. And seeing none, would you like me to close the panel?
Yes, please.
It's closed.
We have completed agenda item 18 and 19. It's not quite 5 o'clock. It was a 9 to 5 day, typical work day. Actually, a short work day for most of us. So I believe that's it. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Take care.
Yeah, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.